perfect family is what we try to be. Look closer, you might see the crazy things we do. This isn't make-believe, it's our reality. Just your average family trying to be normal and stay out of trouble, living a double life.
What's up? Today, we got the Thurmans Undercover, Season 1, Episode 3, Bummer School. So, I'm back. But, it's been a long time. And, yeah. But, I'm back. So, this episode starts off at the Thunder Condo with Phoebe saying, Max, good, you're up, Max. They need to discuss their plan to catch the mastermind. Max says, sure, let me grab some breakfast. And Phoebe says, hey, that's my breakfast. And Max eats it only to spit it out. And Phoebe says, I knew you would do that. That's why I buttered it. That's why I buttered the toast with anchovy juice. And Max says, ew. Now, since they're undercover, they on assignment in Secret Shore. I've been working on to get them cover job. I've been working on cover job, get them on work, getting them cover jobs to blend in. Max says, way ahead of you. I already got cover jobs. I already got us cover jobs at Chloe's school. He says, oh, so they keep an eye on our sister while they keep an eye on the town. Great idea, Max. Claus says, it's a terrible idea. Max already has another job. And Max says, don't say being your friend. Claus says, he won't. It's not a job if you love what you're doing. Max says, I'd love Colosso to leave. Again, in this show, it just seems like Max absolutely dislikes Colosso out of nowhere. In the original show, even by the end of it, Max seemed to have a perfect, good bond with Colosso. Between the events of Thurman's Returns and Thurman's Undercover, I guess between the events of Thurman's Undercover and Thurman's Returns, Max now absolutely doesn't want anything to do with Colosso. What did Colosso do to Max up this bad that he basically roasts Colosso in every episode? Remember when they were friends? Remember when Colosso and Max were friends, and even though Max turned good, Colosso would still think of Max as a friend, and Max would say that he'd be there for Colosso? Not in this show. Max basically does every chance he gets to roast Colosso about anything and roast Colosso about anything he does. I wish to know why they changed their friendship. I guess it was made for more laughs on if Max hated Colosso, it would be more funny. But it just feels out of nowhere and it feels very strange and out of character for Max to just randomly not like Colosso. What are you doing, Kira and Jack Griffo? What are you doing? Why are you changing Colosso and Max's dynamic out of nowhere? I know you guys are co-executive producers of this show, so you guys are the ones that are changing Max and Colosso's dynamic. Well, why are you doing this to me? Or to them? But basically to me, because I always have to reference this every time. References every time. Claus says, I heard the word love. That's good enough for me. Max Phoebe says, so when do they start? Max says, today. I should get dressed for work. So Max presses a button to change from his normal clothes into his work suit. He says, whoa, I thought our Thunder Watches could only change them into their suit. To their super suit. Max says he had Thunder for give them a little update. So Phoebe presses her Thunder Watch to change into a Santa suit, which is the shot from the opening. But Max says he had Thunder for put hers as Santa mode as a joke. I'm delightful. He says, do I look delighted? Thunderfoot says, Max tricked him. He said Christmas casual was in style. Oh, I'm updating. Try it now. And Phoebe presses her Thunderwatch to transform into her work suit. Phoebe says, whoa, I like it. Thunderfoot says, much better though. She was really rocking that beard. Chloe gets shot out of the slide, and Chloe says, what are you wearing? Did Colosso give you guys makeovers again? Phoebe says, no. Matt got some cover jobs at your school. Chloe says, my school? Where I get away from you guys? Where I have time away from you? Where I'm away from you? Time? Great. Yeah, Chloe. that was a funny joke. Chloe saying that, yeah, school is the only place where she can actually stay, where she actually had time away from them, and now that they're working there, she's totally embarrassed. Max says, come on, Chloe, you're gonna love having them there. Guess who's your new vice principal is? Phoebe says, her, and Max says, no, me. Phoebe says, what? Max says, Phoebe's the art teacher. Phoebe says, what, Max? I'm terrible at art. Yeah, we've seen it. We've seen your terrible at art, Phoebe. There was a whole episode in season 2 of the Summer. It's called Change of Art, where Phoebe learned that she couldn't even make an art sculpture that good. Check out that video. That video is great. But still, Phoebe, I'll probably put that video in the link below. Because that video was great. But we know the show keeps trying to remind us that Phoebe is not good at art. Because she isn't. But why is the show always trying to remind us that she isn't good at art? Max says, that's why it's hilarious. Phoebe says, this makes no sense. How could they make him the vice principal? Max says, I don't know, but I sent very two impressive fake resumes to the principal, and I guess she just got sent that I'm better. Phoebe says, why art? It's literally the one thing I'm not good at. And Max says, that's true, but Phoebe, there's a lot of things you're not good at. Because Phoebe says, I'm good at this, and she uses freeze breath to freeze Max. Chloe says, really, girl? And Phoebe says, what? I'm good at that. Fine. And she uses heat breath to unfreeze Max. Max says, oh, so we're freezing each other now before breakfast? So we're freezing each other before breakfast now? He says, you ate my breakfast. Max says, your disgusting anchovy toast didn't count. He says, stop taking other people's things. Max says, stop making gross anchovy breakfast. Chloe teleports in front of them saying, stop, enough arguing. He says, that was not argument, it was a healthy debate. Chloe says, just don't embarrass me at school in front of my friends. Max says, they're not gonna do that. She says, yeah, we may argue a lot, but we never do anything to embarrass her. Do a transition, cut to Phoebe. Do a transition shot of cutting to Phoebe, locking Max out, saying, Phoebe, as your vice principal, I demand you open this door. Phoebe says, and as your art teacher, I say, I blow a raspberry. Booch says, Chloe, I'm sensing a negative aura between your siblings. And Jinx says, how do you think Doesn't the stop locking the door soon? I left my backpack outside. Phoebe says, I can hold this door all day, Max. And Chloe says, you might want to get a new backpack. After the opening, at Secret Shores Middle School, um, Principal Taylor says, there's the new Secret Shores student. How are you enjoying school? Chloe says, it's great, Principal Taylor. I liked it better before Phoebe and Max got jobs. Principal Taylor says, I was just being polite. Save your drama for someone else. For someone else's mama. And don't forget to enter the mascot. Chloe says, sure. Chloe says, sure. Well, what is it? Also, what is it? Principal Taylor says, it's a competition to design the school's new mascot. Chloe says, why are they changing why are they changing the honor? And Principal Taylor says, well, their previous vice principal and our teacher were attacked by a family of otter. It was horrible and adorable. Chloe says, are there any chances so her Phoebe and her brother and sister will be attacked, but any chances they'll be back soon, so her brother and sister. And then Principal says, oh no, they're not doing this again, Blabby. And Chloe says, and then Chloe approaches Jinx and Booch saying, hey guys, did you hear about the mascot? And Jinx says, don't you say that, don't you say that, don't you say that word. Not after last year's mascot. Chloe says, wait, they changed the mascot last year too? And Booch says, yeah, they used to be the Secret Shores manatees until a student got hit by one. Jinx says, how was I supposed to know you can't ride them? Booch says, me and Jinx entered the contest to come up with a new mascot, but we couldn't agree on an idea. Jinx says, he wanted the Space Days, and Booch says, and I wanted the Fighting Granola Clump. Jinx says, anyway, since I couldn't agree on an idea, they had to quickly throw something together. In a flashback to last year, in last year's mascot, Jinx says, hi, for your mascot idea, this is the Secret Shores garbage can. And Booch says, cause we garbage can win this game. Yeah. But the crowd starts booing. And Principal Taylor even boos them. Back in the present, Booch says even the teachers were booing. Jinx says naming the mascot would have made them legends. And Booch says, yeah, everyone would have thought about them whenever a kid tripped and fell in that logo. Jinx says, yeah, I'm the kid, aren't I? And I'm that kid, aren't I? And Booch says, usually. Chloe says, maybe we can come up with a new mascot. And Booch says, but me and Jinx swore on a moonbeam that the two of us would never enter again. Jinx says, yeah, we're out. Chloe says, but you never swore anything about the three of us entering. And Booch says, whoa, Chloe just found a cosmic loophole. And Jinx says, we're back in. And Chloe says, awesome. And if they win, they'll definitely be legends. Booch says, look. Booch says, look, I've got Goosebumps. It's Goosebumps, but for vegans. But vegan. It's Goosebumps, but vegan. I don't think they're actually real, but this show's trying to make you think they're real. Chloe says, Phoebe's coming. Oh no, Phoebe's coming. Let's leave before she embarrasses me again. Jinx says, isn't your sister our teacher? Maybe she can help them with the mascot. Chloe says, oh, Jinx, you're so funny. Yeah, no, we don't want Phoebe anywhere near this. So they leave. As the bell rings, Max says, "No ring in the halls." I love power. Phoebe says, "Hey, Max." Hey, Max says, What's up, Phoebe? How's the new job?" And Phoebe says, "Oh, great. I know you find it hilarious that I'm not our teacher, but actually, I've actually had a really good day." Max says, "Are your hands glued together?" And Phoebe says, "Yes. Please help me." And Max says, uses telekinesis to pull them apart, to unglue her hands. Phoebe says, "Oh, I'm just not meant for being an art teacher, Max." Well, when you're an art, there's all this paint and glitter, so much glitter, so much glitter. Oh my eye, and glitter. Max says, "Well, if it makes you feel any better, my day was awesome. Principal Taylor took me out to lunch. I napped in my office. I guess that was it. Best cover job ever." Phoebe says, "Okay, well, I have no idea how you got that principal job over me, but I'm not gonna. But you need to start taking this cover job. Start taking this cover job more seriously." Max says, "Oh, he is. He's right in the middle of finding a new teacher to fill in for a sick chance." He says, "I feel bad for whoever that poor sucker is." And Max says, "Here you go." So he says, "I'm the sucker?" Max says, but Max, I was gonna go out after school to search for the mastermind, patrol for the master." Max says, "And these kids are depending on me for freshly mop floor, so mop to it." He says, he's so lucky. I love mopping." But their hands get glued to the mop. Meanwhile, at the Thunder condo, Chloe's talking about Chloe says how are the mascot design coming? Jinx said, "Fantastic. Our school needs an inspirational feel-good mascot, which is why I give you the Secret Shores killer whale." Chloe says, "Maybe something more terrifying," which is, what about the Secret Shores sparkly unicorn?" And Chloe says, "Maybe something a little bit more terrifying." Booch says, "This is useless. It's last year all over again. Except they're not in Jinx's hospital room." Jinx says that place is the best pudding. Chloe says, "Hey, what if we combine your idea? They could enter as the Secret Shores narwhal." Booch says, "I love it. The narwhals are the unicorns of the sea." Jinx says, "Oh, they're going to be the legend. The good kind. Not like that kid who only walks backwards around school." Chloe says, "Exactly. We just needed to create our mascot costume." Booch says, "Not a problem. Take our hands and we'll manifest one with a collective minds." So they say narwhal. And then Chloe says, "Is it working?" Booch says, "No. But keep going. Narwhal." Meanwhile, at Secret Shores Middle School, Phoebe is mopping while saying, "I'll show Max. I'm gonna make this the cleanest floor he's ever seen. I'm really bad at revenge." Principal Taylor says, "Talking to your mom?" And Phoebe says, "No. Yes. Don't judge me." Principal Taylor says, "I get it. Must be how you survived those long nights in prison." Phoebe says, "Yeah, wait, I'm sorry, did you say prison?" Principal Taylor says, "Phoebe, your resume say you spent Phoebe's resume says you spent 5 years in the slammer for sampling grapes at a supermarket." Phoebe said, "What did you do, Max?" Principal Taylor says, "Sorry, were you muttering to me or your mop?" Phoebe says, "Oh, she was just actually wondering if Principal Taylor had my resume in your office." Phoebe says, Principal Taylor says, "Yeah, she keeps a copy in her bag whenever she needs a good laugh." Phoebe says, "I got my degree from the Upstate Academy of Artsy Art Stuff." Principal Taylor says, Normally I wouldn't hire anyone so unqualified, but I did as a favor to Max. You don't say no to the vice principal who's been knighted by the King of England." And then Phoebe gives a, and you're giving me prison eyes, aren't you? Phoebe says, "Not really," and says, "Not really." And Principal Taylor says, "Well, your resume says scraping gum relaxes you, so namaste. Or should I say, scrape away." Phoebe says, "Man, you think you're so smart, I'm gonna make you regret ever becoming vice principal." Then she crumbles up her resume, but says, "Dang, I forgot I'm the one who's gonna have to clean that up." Mac walks into the secret chores, trying to hide from all the students, only for the best character in this episode, Phoebe, new persona to show up. Yeah, this episode adopts a new persona for Phoebe that she just dubs Prison Phoebe. And Prison Phoebe is the best character, even though she's just Phoebe, just going by a new name. But still, Prison Phoebe is great. Prison Phoebe says, "What you doing, Max?" And Max says, "Not there's a bunch of kids lined up beside of his office. Because I'm the vice principal doesn't mean I care about the students." Prison Phoebe says, "They must have seen what you posted on the school socials about hosting donuts with the vice principal." Max says, "What kind of annoying tryhard would steal his phone? It was you, wasn't it?" Phoebe says, "No, I'm messing with Prison Phoebe." Max says, "Prison Phoebe, oh, you saw the resume." Phoebe says, "Yeah, I did. And now I know how you got the vice principal job over me." Max says, Okay. So maybe I had an entirely incredibly way too much fun making these fake resumes, but I mean, these are just cover jobs. Phoebe says, "Yeah, tell that to those students waiting for donuts, Vice Principal Thunderman," causing all the students to run Max out the door. Phoebe says, maybe I am good at revenge." Meanwhile, back at Thunder Condo, Booch places the narwhal head on Jinx. Booch says, "Look how great our narwhal is. Never underestimate the power of teamwork and soggy newspapers." Chloe says, "Once they win and become a legend, do you think they're gonna build a statue of them?" Jinx says, They'll have to once they see this pose. Pose with me." And they all pose. Chloe says, "The kid who walks backwards is gonna be so jealous." Be so jealous of them. Jinx says, "Oh yeah, he's gotta go home and change for the competition." Butch says, "Me too. I mean, the part about going home. I don't need to change. The mom psychic said I'm perfect just the way I am." Chloe says, "Well, I guess I'll see them at school. See you guys at school then. Who wants to keep the normal head?" Chloe says, Booch says, why live on a yurt at the beach? Which is basically just a tent on the beach. And Jinx says, I'm Jinx. And I'm Jinx. Which obviously, so Chloe's like, she should take it, I should take it. And they're like, yes. Which they don't realize that she has two fighting siblings who are going to fight. So I think that Booch could have been the better option. Meanwhile, at the Thunder Condo headquarters, he says, oh yeah, Max will never see that coming. Claus says, unless I tell him, which is probably won't. They're in a fight. Max says, I'm too old to use the word Briz. He says, you are. Yeah. Max gets shot of the slide saying, if your little donut stone wasn't enough, you just had to leave a lunch bag full of smelly food with his name on it in the teacher's lounge. Phoebe says, it was a fish head liverwurst sandwich to be exact. Max says, ugh, it completely stunk up the place, and now the math teacher's calling him the Vice Stinkable. Hope you're happy. Phoebe says, oh yes, she is. Thank you for that. Max says, I'm done letting you make a fool of me at school. Phoebe says, good, because I'm going to make a fool of you at home too. I'm emailing your number to every parent saying that you're available to chat about their kids. Max says, you wouldn't dare. And she says, I would. And I did. Max says, dealing with annoying parents is worse than smelly sandwiches. Claus says, sorry, Max. I tried to warn you. Max says, Claus knew you didn't. Claus says, that's because I got rid. Is that right? And Phoebe says, Max says, no. And that's the line that they use in the promos for the show at the end. This line when Costa says, am I using that right? And they say no, is basically the promos that the TVs use for this show, which is really weird. This line that they promote when they're promoting the show. Phoebe says, Max's phone is never gonna stop ringing. Max says, unless I do this. And he uses heat breath to burn his phone. Phoebe says, you realize you could have just turned your phone off. And Max says, that's right. Now he does. And for pointing that out, he's taking your phone too. Phoebe says, don't you dare. Cherry just sent me an adorable picture of a panda hula dancing, and I haven't responded to it yet. So they start fighting over the phone. Claus says, that's it, go beast mode on her, Maxie. Wait, what? You know I can't say mad at you. Max says, let's go to the phone. President Phoebe says, President Phoebe don't take orders from nobody. Max says, you didn't really go to prison. And Phoebe says, that's not what it says on my resume. And Max says, let go of the phone. And they get shot outside onto the living room, causing them to crash into Chloe, Jinx, and Booch's narwhal head. Phoebe says, oh no, they destroyed Chloe's mascot head. Max says, you know what? You keep the phone. Phoebe says, maybe we can fix it before Chloe sees. Then Chloe just happens to walk down the stairs saying, oh no, my narwhal head. Like that. And I thought I had worse timing. Phoebe, you definitely have the worst timing. Max says, I think she saw. Phoebe says, Chloe, we're so sorry. Max says, they are, but technically Phoebe should be more sorry. Phoebe says, dream on, like Stimple butthead. Phoebe says, no. Chloe says, knock it off, you two. And Phoebe says, he started it. And Chloe says, and Max says, she started it. And Chloe says, you both started it. Now sit down. I said sit down. Yeah, Chloe goes beast mode. Chloe goes boss mode on these two. And it's a great sight to see that actually a character is going boss mode on these two. Yeah. Chloe says, because of your fighting, Jinx, Booch, and I have nothing to present. Jinx, Booch, and I have nothing to present. Forget being legend. They're never going to talk to me again. And now you're the adult in charge of me, so start acting like it. They say, yes, ma'am. Chloe says, now I have to figure out what to tell my friends, that I let them down. You're lucky I don't ground the both of you. Max says, they can do that? And Chloe says, instead of Chloe saying, yes, I can, she just teleports out. She just teleports away to, of course, tell her friends that she let them down. But man, Chloe, boss mode. That was a boss mode, Chloe. Phoebe says, "Oh man, we really messed up." Max says, "Listen, I'm sorry I made you a bad resume. Okay, it's just I was always the cool one in school, the handsome one and the humble one." And Phoebe says, "Okay, I get it." But you're always the one who everyone respected. I wanted to know what that was like. Phoebe says, "Forget about." Phoebe says, "We forgot about our most important job." Max says, "Being superhero heartthrob." And Phoebe says, "No, giving Chloe a normal life." Max says, "While being superhero heartthrob." Chloe's right. You're right. I wish there was a way we can make this up to Chloe. Claudia says, "Your wish is my command." Max says, Phoebe says, "Has Claudia been back there this whole time, dressed as a genie?" Claudia says, "Don't judge me, girlie, or I might not help you, or I might not give them the look behind the chair." And Phoebe says, "A new narwhal head." Claudia, how do you do this? Claudia says, "Unlike you, I'm actually good at art. And I figured out that it should be possible, that I should probably help them out." Max says, "This is pretty awesome, Claudia. So, what do you want?" And Claudia says, "Some new shorts. I mean short. When I say short, I mean short." Max says, "Nobody wants that. Nobody wants to see that." And Phoebe says, "Max, we gotta save Chloe's friendship. Buy the bunny some shorts." Max says, "Fine." Claudia, "Fine." And Claudia says, "Hot bunny summer, here I come." Meanwhile, Sea Shores High, Principal Taylor says, "The next mascot is weird, but not capable of attacking humans, so give it up to the Secret Shores sunscreen." Jinx says, "That dance bottle makes him feel good about their narwhal chances." Booch says, "Me too. You know, I'm not really the competitive type, but we're gonna cream that sunscreen." Jinx says, "Yeah, if Chloe ever shows up, where is she?" Chloe says, "Right here." Booch says, "Well, didn't you forget something? It looks about this big. It looks like a narwhal head." Chloe says, about that. Chloe says, "About that, I don't have the head." Jinx says, "Oh no, it's happening again. What are they gonna do?" Booch says, "Quick, grab the garbage cans and suit up. Garbage can powers unite." Chloe says, I mean I don't have the head because, And then Phoebe and Max show up, so Chloe says, Phoebe and Max are bringing it. Phoebe says, "Remember, Chloe, you asked them to bring the narwhal head to make sure it got back here safely?" Chloe says, "That's totally what I did." Do I want to know where you guys got this? Max says, "It involves a bunny. It involves a bunny and short shorts." Chloe says, "Say less." And Max says, "Give it up one more time for the dancing sunscreen." I don't get it, but whatever. Okay, next up, we have the Secret Shores narwhal. Chloe says, "You ready?" Jinx says, "Ready." Guys, one problem, I can't see. Chloe says, "What do you mean you can't see?" Jinx says, "There's no eye hole." Booch says, "I could have sworn I put ones in. But that may have been an alternate universe me. Because Jinx, I guess, believes in Booch believes in alternate universes. Prince Potato says, I said the secret shores narwhal. Booch says, they're gonna have to do, they're gonna have to do it. He can't dance if he can't see. Chloe says, we have no choice. He has to go on. Jinx says, I'll do it. Have the nurse standing by. Have a nurse standing by. Chloe says, look at Jinx. Go Jinx like no one's watching. Okay, new plan. Dance like a lot of people were watching. Max says, Costa forgot to make eye hole, so he's not getting those short shorts. He's so not getting those short shorts. Phoebe says they gotta help Jinx put on your dancing fingers. So they use telekinesis to make Jinx dance good in his narwhal costume. Jinx says, it looks like, look at Jinx. It's like the beats are controlling him. Chloe sees Phoebe and Max using telekinesis, so she's like, yeah, it's like, it must be a pretty powerful beat. It's a pretty powerful beat. Jinx says, I crushed it. Encore. And Phoebe and Max are like, encore? Yeah, that was so funny. And then he starts dancing again until Jinx falls down. Principal Taylor says she likes that narwhal better than the sunscreen. So poor sunscreen walks away. Sad. I felt bad for the sunscreen. She did, I don't know if it's a girl. I think it's a girl. She did not deserve to get roasted by the principal like that. Poor sunscreen. I feel bad for her. Just hashtag justice for the Secret Shore sunscreen. Yeah. Taylor says so the sunscreen walks away in shame. Poor sunscreen. Chloe says, Jinx, are you okay? Jinx says, did we win? Booch says, spiritually or actually? Because I think both those answers are no. Chloe says, the whole thing's a mess. I really wanted to help you guys win. Booch says, it would have been great to win, but living together as friends, it's just as good. Chloe says, Booch is right. This is their first spectacular failure together. Principal Taylor says, I really want to go home, so the winner of this year's mascot is the Secret Shores Narwhal. And she says this as Chloe and the gang are about to leave in defeat. But then they share in happiness because they became legends and actually won. Chloe secretly whispers thank you to Max and Phoebe, knowing that they helped her win. Or they helped her get the win. Yeah. They pose as Max says, well, I gotta say, it feels good they were able to actually stop fighting and help Chloe with her and her friend. He says, yeah, they're going to respect each other's cover job. Max says, sure did. But by the way, the janitor's still sick, so he needs her to clean up Jinx's mess. Phoebe says, we really doing this? And Max says, no, for Phoebe. So Max says, starts mopping up Jinx's mess to end the episode. So, the first episode back was a really good one. I like the plot. Chloe actually took names in this episode and was the boss. And, yeah, good Jinx plot. And it's the birth of Prison Phoebe. So, how can you say no when you got Prison Phoebe? So, next episode, we got the parent zap. So in the next episode, Max and Phoebe allow Jinx and Booch and Chloe to watch a scary movie. But then discovering that Jinx and Booch's parents want to meet Phoebe and Max's parents. So want to meet Chloe's parents. So with Hank and Barb out of town or away, Phoebe and Max have to pose as Hank and Barb in front of Chloe's parents. But things are going well until the real Hank and Barb show up. So they get back at Phoebe and Max. Hank and Barb then pretend to be Phoebe and Max. Yeah, crazy. That Hank and Barb are turning, Phoebe and Max are turning into Hank and Barb. Hank and Barb are turning into Phoebe and Max. Hank and Barb, as Phoebe and Max, accidentally turn on Phoebe and Max's hold hands, activating Phoebe and Max's twin power, which then attacks Principal Taylor, causing Jinx and Booch's parents to think that Max and Phoebe are not, that Chloe doesn't have good guardians. So that means they're not good influences on Chloe, on their kids. So now Phoebe and Max and Hank and Barb have to figure out how to get Chloe her friendship back, because in the last episode they fought so well for them, and now in this episode they have to fight so well for them. But anyway, that's it for this episode, and I'll see you next time for Season 1, Episode 4, Thunder's Undercover, Season 1, Episode 4, The Parent Zap. Next episode we get some Thunder Ran Away and some Electric Thunder as we see the return as we see Hank and Barb again. Technically for the first time this season, but they were in the premiere. But anyway, let's parent zap it up, as next time we bring on the electricity and the thunder as we review Season 1, Episode 4, The Parent Zap.